Welcome to episode number 326 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. You can find us by searching Beyond Social Media Show. We are recording on October 9, 2020. A ton of things to talk about this week, including Back to the Pandemic Future, Ghost Kitchens, Laborious Retweets, Library of Congress search, Refreshipedia, Telepath, QAnon, and Anon. We have a lot of QAnon stories this week. And you want to stick around for some statistics about brand activism, but we kick it off with the best story of the week, and BL has that honor. BL, what do you got?
Well, I guess a few months ago we would not have found this so funny, but this is a series of 3 videos from Julia Kolke on YouTube, in which she is explaining to her past self, as though she's from the future, what life in the pandemic will be like. So she tells her, for example, you ought to make a trip to Costco and stock up on, household supplies and make sure you get plenty of toilet paper. You'll be glad. And she said, and you ought to get a dog. And so then her old self says, well, I don't know, you have to walk it, and I work a lot and I travel for work. She said, oh, no, you won't be traveling. And she said, well, but I'll be working. She said, no, you won't be working. And she said, well, how will I be getting by? And she said, well, we don't know that. And that first one has had like 15 million views. And then she did 2 more, and it is funny because you have to laugh or else you would cry, but you have to watch them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is awesome.
I have not seen those. I will definitely take out time out to watch them.
I travel all the time. I don't know if we'll take care of the dog. Oh no, you won't be traveling.
How will I get by? Well, to be determined. Yeah. Yeah, well, speaking of how do I get by, this is a Star Tribune story by Sharon Jackson. We talk a lot about, you and I both talk a lot and commiserate on the plight of restaurants in the wake of COVID-19, because obviously that's a huge part of our cultural and entertainment, going out and hanging out with our friends and going to restaurants and eating good meals.
Used to be.
Yep.
Our past selves did that.
Our past selves, exactly. Was that covered in the videos? Because it sure as hell
yes,
should be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But this was an interesting article because it's kind of how restaurants, at least in the Twin Cities, are innovating. And so they're starting a concept called basically it's a restaurant within a restaurant, a new restaurant within a restaurant. So it's a trend of using pre-existing businesses to house new takeout ventures. They're called ghost kitchens, cloud kitchens, dark kitchens, but it's basically any kitchen that's already available can be used to power more than one food business. So you may have restaurants that have limited hours due to COVID. And so there's times when their kitchens aren't being used to serve customers in real time. You can put those kitchens to use in doing a takeout business. Some restaurateurs are going virtual by branching out, and they're using this concept to branch out in different cuisines, testing ideas for brick and mortar ideas for the future, or just using them to keep the lights on and having enough cash flow to survive. But it's keeping with the trend that food delivery has been on the rise before the pandemic came along. So almost 8 in 10 restaurant customers order delivery at least once a month. That's according to last year a survey by the National Restaurant Association, and many are placing their orders on third-party delivery apps like DoorDash and Bite Squad and so forth. But I just found it as an interesting way that people are innovating, adapting to the current reality, and hopefully it's enough.
Wow, that's fascinating. There's a street in New York, in Manhattan, 6th Street, where there are one Indian restaurant after another, after another, after another. And for many, many years, it's been known that they all share a kitchen. You know, they're different restaurants. Some have different prices, some have different dishes, but they all come from the same place, and therefore they all taste the same. But it's a really, you know, it's really remarkable the way that businesses are reinventing themselves, the things that they're doing. You know, we're very resilient kinds of creatures. I guess that's really what it comes down to. But
Well, though, a lot of the innovation that's happening right now as a result of, I mean, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention, right? A lot
yeah,
of these
exactly.
innovations are going to be with us forever now, or,
However long this
yeah,
takes, yeah.
or beyond that.
Yeah, really. So I could have put this in both good and bad, but I'm thinking that it's good. Twitter today announced a new series of disinformation checks. And they are going to alter the look and the feel of Twitter until after the election. And the principal thing is to increase the amount of time that you have to spend before you just retweet. There are thousands of accounts that do nothing but retweet what other people say. Now they're going to ask you to make a comment before you retweet. It's just to slow down the craziness. So this is from a Twitter blog post and also a Washington Post story by Elizabeth Dwoskin and Craig Timberg. And so they are going to put more warnings on politicians' lies. I'll believe that when I see it. They're going to restrict premature declarations of victory at the election. They're going to block calls for violence, like this week when Trump called for Army for Trump on his website and on Twitter, asking people to go to the polls with their arms. And it's going to have an effort to harden the platform against abuse of the elections. So you're going to have to add your own thoughts before you retweet. Recommendations and trends are going to get new curbs, which they sorely need, intended to prevent abuse. And you won't be able to just press that retweet button. A screen is going to say, quote the tweet, or provide commentary above the tweet that you might want to share. They're going to label more tweets that violate their policies. The moves are going to intensify the contentious relationship that they have with the Trump and Republicans, who completely insist that they're being restricted unfairly. But what they're going to do now is they're going to add credible information to, I have an example of it in the show notes. They're going to, I don't know how to explain it. If they have falsehoods, there's going to be something that says this may not be a credible source. Here's more information, which every platform has tried to do unsuccessfully. So that's why I'm not sure whether it's going to make any difference. And I see that's why you put the headline that you put for the show notes, because I mean, it's in the good news because they're trying, certainly harder than Facebook. You know, the kidnapping of Governor Whitmer was planned on Facebook. So I don't think you could do that on Twitter with these regulations, but you know, everything's kind of, whatever you think can happen does. So who knows?
Yeah, I have a screenshot of basically Twitter has turned into nagware now. When I try and retweet something without it's always popping up and saying, why don't you say something about this, blah blah blah.
Yeah, but that's good. It makes people think, because that's what happens on this platform. People don't think, it's all reactionary. So, you know, I mean, but I don't think it's going to slow down Trump in the least bit.
Well, I mean, it's nagware for me because I retweet credible sources, so I don't have to worry about it.
I do, but I comment on them almost always.
Yeah. We like to talk about new resources, and this is a cool new one. This is from the Next Web's Thomas Macaulay, who writes that the U.S. Library of Congress has a new AI tool that allows you to search through their 16 million historical newspaper pages for images. So it's called the
Wow.
Newspaper Navigator, and it allows you to search for seminal events that are being reported throughout, American history in local newspapers. So, wars, presidents, whatever. You can see how they've been depicted in the past in newspaper reporting. You can click on an image to download it. You can read the article that accompanies the image. You can view the full issue of the newspaper in question that was cited from. You can learn more about the newspaper. I did it for my Chaska local newspapers back in the distant day, and it was interesting, the stuff that you find. So I'll put a link to it in the show notes for people to check it out.
That's a really wonderful update. This is Lucy, guys. So, for a lot of young people, the only encyclopedia they've ever known is Wikipedia. And Wikipedia has basically looked exactly the same kind of hot mess for decades. And so now the Wikipedia blog called MediaWiki where it has a post from Olga Vasilva, and she's saying that they're phasing in a new look to make it easier to navigate. And it's their first redesign in decades. And so she said that they're going to have a new logo, collapsible sidebar, new table of contents, and lots more, maximum line width, because that's part of the problem on that site. And you can see a full list of the new features that they're going to have. They're doing them incrementally to allow for feedback and to test them, but it's an enormous undertaking because it has to be translated into scores and scores of languages. And it's a formidable task. And so if all goes according to plan, they'll be complete in December 2021, which is timed with Wikipedia's 20th birthday celebration. And speaking of birthday celebrations, while we're still doing good news, today is the 40th anniversary of the John Lennon Remembrance Concert. And it's a free streaming concert happening tonight, but it'll be online. We'll be able to see it, and everybody who's anybody is going to be there. And, maybe if we think about John Lennon, maybe we can come together and maybe we can give peace a chance someday.
Nicely done. I see what you did there. Two song references there. Well done. Bravo. Come together
right now.
So I can't remember. Casey Newton, has he left The Verge, or did he just take his subscribers and launch? Okay, he's left The Verge. So this is a piece by Casey Newton in his last days at The Verge, and it is a great piece. It's about a new social network called Telepath. Telepath was started by Richard Henry and Mark Bodnick, who had previously worked at Quora together. They have had Telepath in beta, and they announced a wider release recently. It is only available in private beta right now. It requires an invitation. I asked for one, so please give me one. But it is a hybrid of Twitter and Reddit. And so there's, like Twitter, it has a central scrolling feed of updates. But like Reddit, every post needs to be created within a group, within a subsection of the site, like subreddits are on Reddit. It requires real names. So when you sign up, you have to sign up with your real name, which the article cites that it makes it difficult for activists and dissidents who want to remain anonymous. It requires a real mobile number as well. But it also tells you how to act. So the other social networks never told us this is what we expect of you, the user, on how to behave on the platform. So the first rule is actual behavioral norms for your time spent on Telepath. And they are: be kind, don't be mean, don't attack people or insult what they post. Assume that people have good intentions. And if a reasonable person would think that you're being a jerk, that's not okay. Persistent behavior that's on the line. So this is where, you know, people skirt the boundaries of policies. Persistent behavior that's on the line is not okay. Okay, so it's setting up. These are the norms of the community that you have to abide by. They plan to add moderators as it grows, and they're assuming that they will have lower profit margins eventually because they're going to have a heavy investment in full-time employees working on these issues. They decided to launch more widely only after implementing a key privacy feature, which is that the conversations delete by default after 30 days. So taking a page from Snapchat's playbook, but you can save your conversations to your private archive as well. But it's an interesting, different approach, learning from what everybody else has not learned, you know, of all the other social channels, of what is wrong with them. So we'll see how it works, but I'm anxious to get my invite because I definitely want to try this out and see how it works.
It's in many ways very similar to Clubhouse, where you have to be brought in by a person. You know, you're not just given invitations. I haven't quite figured out how I get an invitation, but there is the same thing. It didn't start out with the rules of behavior, but they had to evolve. It's limited in size right now, but eventually it's very well financed and it will be a huge network. There have already been problems there with stalking and anti-Semitism and insults, and there are moderators. There will, over time, I'm sure, be paid moderators. There's one person who runs a virtual dinner on Saturday night, and 100 people come to that. And the difference between it and what I think you're describing is that Clubhouse is voice only, and at the moment only on iOS. But you have to have your real name, you have to have a picture, you have to have a bio. You know, it's you have to raise your hand if you have something to say if you're not a moderator. But what I find astounding about it, and I guess it's astounding about every social network, is that people are talking constantly 24 hours a day. Like, I don't know, doesn't anybody do anything else anymore except talk? I don't quite get it.
Yeah, there are different time zones in the world.
The same people. It's the same people. They're always there. I'm not going to name them, but I wonder what the hell else they do.
The article does cite Clubhouse, so it does make the comparison to Clubhouse. What I found fascinating of it was, one, the rules of behavior from the start, but also you know, saying at the outset that we don't expect to make as much money as the other channels are making. And that's, I think, a key aspect of it, because if you're then getting investors or your attention is go public, then you're setting it, the framing of it, that to be successful, we don't have to be like everybody else. And,
Right.
you know, that's kind of the brilliance of what Jeff Bezos did with Amazon. See, he didn't make money for forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. He just and that was, you know, it was just growth and growth and growth in different areas. So we'll see how that works, but I'm impressed with the approach anyway.
Well, every week there's a town hall where people come and talk. They talk about Clubhouse a lot. I mean, you know, we go on Clubhouse to talk about Clubhouse, but there's a town hall with the founders, and people talk about what their experience has been in the previous week. And every week they make changes based on what people ask for. So, you know, that's really interesting. But a lot of the conversation seems to indicate that eventually you will pay to join conversations. You know, that if there's a dinner with 200 people there, you're going to pay $5 or $10 to join it. And you know, that gets into the issue.
Feels like a sorority or a fraternity to me.
Yeah, it's really clubby. It's why they call it Clubhouse. But you know, that gets into the issue of subscriptions, which is a big one. But anyway, I do not have more good news.
All right, we're going to go into this next section of the show is going to be QAnon for quite a while. We got 3 QAnon stories
Be
here,
warned,
or
yeah.
one after the other. But this isn't good. So this is before we get into bad, which you wouldn't expect from a QAnon story, but there you go. This is from an Atlantic article by Tiffany, who discusses how Reddit managed to deal with QAnon. So Reddit's problem started several years ago. But it was before QAnon really became a cultural phenomenon, before it really took off and became something that, normal people had heard about. But they were able to isolate QAnon's influence because before the community got too large where they couldn't do anything about it, which is what Facebook's problem is right now, right? Facebook has to deal with a full-fledged social movement right now, and it reemerges over and over on the site because it's a thing in society. It's not just an online conversation. The article quotes James Grimmelman, who is a professor of digital and information law at Cornell Law School. And it's a problem on Facebook because it's a problem in society, right? The article says that Reddit's infrastructure plays an important role in containing these, because the conversations on Reddit, though they're open to any user, they're siloed into subreddits, right? So it's not like Twitter where it's everywhere. It's not like Facebook where it's everywhere. The conversations are contained in a subreddit. And there's no viral tweets, there's no trending hashtags. So Reddit has this advantage that because these conversations are discrete entities within its infrastructure, it's easy to restrict and ban those conversations if they cross the line and violate policies. So that's not possible on a decentralized platform like Twitter or Facebook. The company has given itself more enforcement latitude too, because the most significant rule is a policy on ban evasion. So it prohibits people, not just individual users, prohibits individual users from trying to recreate, or let me say that again. It prohibits individual users from creating new accounts to try and recreate the community that was banned. But so it can ban these subreddits. By doing so, it bans entire communities, and the ban evasion allows them to, according to their policy, ban any attempt at recreating that community. So that's not something that Facebook has ever tried. Twitter couldn't do that because of the nature of the platform, but it gives them a powerful mechanism in order to contain toxic messaging, basically. They also have a powerful site-wide norm against doxing, because Reddit was founded as a place for people to have pseudonymous. That's a hard word to pronounce. Pseudonymous or anonymous discussions. Doxing is contrary to that value, right? So they have a strong policy against doxing, and that's kind of what QAnon does all the time. So interesting take, and something that newer platforms that are trying to start can learn from. And I think that was one of the things on the previous Telepath that I talked about.
It took a very long time for Reddit to clean up its act. There were some really dreadful things that were taking place there initially and for quite a long time. And ultimately, I believe somebody new became president or something. There was some big management change at some point. I think they voted out the president at some point. But
I think they went through a quick cup of coffee president and then moved on to somebody else. But it is telling that we are talking about Reddit more and more often,
exactly,
which we have never in the past, because it's kind of been a toxic place for marketing. So
there's some very interesting stuff on there. So that brings me to bad news about QAnon. So Facebook says they've purged QAnon, sort of. They say they've completely banned QAnon across all its platforms, and they're saying that they've called it a militarized social movement but it actually hasn't done that. This is from two stories, one from The Verge by Nick Statt and one from Bloomberg by William Thornton and Joshua Brustein. So Facebook is still allowing individuals to post QAnon content to their personal Facebook pages. So that's not exactly a ban. So they had a blog post the other day saying, starting today, we'll remove any Facebook pages, groups, and Instagram accounts representing QAnon, even if they contain no violent content. And it said that this is going to take time, presumably because there's so much of that content. And so for anybody who doesn't know, QAnon is a conspiracy theory that believes that high-profile Democrats and Hollywood celebrities are members of a child-eating cabal that is secretly being taken down by President Trump, and that members of this cabal will soon be marched to their execution. That has something to do with what happened to the governor of Michigan. But so also this week from the You Can't Make This Shit Up department, Bloomberg Business broke the news that a QAnon evangelist, QMAP creator and former Citigroup executive, Jason Gallinez, lived a normal suburban life with a plum Wall Street gig. And he was living in a New Jersey suburb. He was into soccer, Game of Thrones, and the QAnon conspiracy. And he ran their biggest news hub with top, and he claimed in 4chan, which is another cesspool, that where the hub began, that he was a government employee with top secret Q-level clearance. He's since been fired from his job at Citi, and he took down all his profiles of QMAP. So Google tried to make it harder to find QAnon sites by keeping them from showing up in searches. And Facebook and Twitter have blocked links to them through posts, but posts are easy to find on Facebook and everywhere else, and even on Telegram. So like roaches, they turn up everywhere. You know, their followers also sometimes spread the word by writing their URLs on signs and holding them up at Trump rallies. It turns out that the militia that planned to kidnap the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, was doing much of their planning on Facebook and bragging about it. And they shared photos and videos of their so-called militia training and their unsuccessful, thank goodness, attempts to make explosive devices. And so Janja Lalich, who is a professor emeritus of sociology at California State University, who studied cults for decades, says cults are thriving now in our society because we have leadership that's tried very hard to change the relationship we have with reality. And people are grasping at straws. And you have something about this later on. And the last 4 years have been very precedent setting in terms of creating this whole atmosphere of disbelief. You don't know what to believe anymore. And most people do not have the skills to vet their sources. So returning from that collective delusion, she says, is not going to be easy. It's horrible.
Yeah, no, it's going to be with us for a long time, I suspect. I think, I mean, what Facebook is doing is, I think it'll actually have a significant effect if they actually do it fully. Because, you know, the groups and pages are the centers of gravity where this information is spread out to everywhere else. And so, I mean, groups and especially, what they're doing is what they've been doing is hijacking Facebook's algorithm.
Yeah.
So by getting everybody into a group together and posting content to the group, then all the other members of that group start sharing and commenting. It triggers the algorithm, makes it spread more widely. So, you know, I think cutting that part out of it, people are still going to be posting their own paid profiles and everything, but I think it will dramatically, I mean, if they do it that way, it'll dramatically reduce the reach of that content. But
you can only hope. I mean, yeah. You know, can you have 2,000 followers on Facebook? What is the number of followers where they cut off your followers? It's a pretty significant number, and you know, they'll find a way, because they do, or they'll go back to 4chan, or they'll start some other network. I mean, you know, they'll find a way.
So this is another QAnon
More
thing. This is from
QAnon.
more QAnon. This is from Jane Litvenko at BuzzFeed News, and we've been talking about how QAnon is spreading disinformation, misinformation, conspiracy theories in the information ecosphere. This is a story about the consequences of consuming that information, and it's fascinating. So BuzzFeed, I won't go through what QAnon is. You already just did that,
Yeah.
but BuzzFeed asked their readers for stories of friends and family members who they know that have bought into QAnon, basically become QAnon adherents. Almost 200 people told them, responded, of what it's like to lose a loved one to the mass delusion, is how they phrased it.
It's a cult.
Yeah. A Pew Research Center survey is cited in the article that says roughly half of US adults were aware of QAnon, but 4 in 10 Republicans who had heard of it said it was good for the country.
God.
So, that's significant, to say the least. So anyway, they asked the readers, they responded, and we'll just cite some of these. They said nearly 200 people did. Respondents who mostly said they lived in the United States ranged in age from 16 to 82. And I'm just going to read some quotes from it. Once my mom lost her job in March due to the pandemic, she started spending most of her time watching YouTube videos and reading tweets about and from QAnon believers, wrote Katie, 29, who lives in Alaska. It's disturbing the things she now believes. Different quote. My cousin is divorcing her husband over his obsession with QAnon. It ruined their relationship and became a huge wedge between them.
My goodness.
It is 100% a digital cult, and it's very dangerous. I'm worried about what it will lead to, not only for our own family, but for our society as the whole. It's really scary. And then a woman from Belgium said this poison is troubling our relationship. She's talking about her own relationship with her significant other. So we avoid the subject, but this is not the right thing to do. I would like her to wake up from this bad dream and face the world like it is. I hope that we in Europe will not turn like the Americans. And I sincerely hope that the US, I sincerely hope for the US that the country will take another path.
Wow, that's really scary stuff.
Yeah, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, obviously, and it's worth a read for, that was just a sampling of the quotes. But it's scary because even before QAnon became such a huge thing, in the wake of Cambridge Analytica and the Pizzagate thing, that was the first instance of it.
Pizzagate thing, yeah.
Right? I was like, oh my God! So what Cambridge Analytica did was profile people based on their psychological profile. They understood that people are a certain way, and you can feed information to them based on what their character, their personality profile was like. It seemed to me that it's not much of a stretch from doing that to activating crazy people to do crazy shit.
Yeah, and it's clearly happening all around us.
Yeah.
And I can tell you about somebody who's 98 with those beliefs. It's time for smiles.
Yeah.
So if you watch the debate, which I fell asleep before this happened, I have to say, but if you watch the debate, of course, you saw the fly on Mike Pence's head. And of course, the cool thing about that was the Biden campaign immediately adding a fly swatter to their online store. But by a few hours later, there was Mike Pence's fly on Twitter, and who now has 33,500 followers. I thought it was
so weird because it was like on his head for a minute and a half or 2 minutes or whatever. And it's like,
Never
dude, why are you not swatting that shit away? Oh my God.
And it flew in. I mean, I saw it later. It didn't just land. It flew onto it. Well, I think he had a lot of hairspray on his hair or something, and he couldn't feel his head. I don't know. But you have one too, don't you?
Wait, I got more on this subject. Jake Tapper tweeted
so
exclusive to CNN interview with the fly. And it was just a gif of a fly.
My favorite photo was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and underneath it said, "I sent the fly."
And then everybody was sharing, of course, the interview with Barack Obama where there was a fly
and he caught it
around. He's swishing it away, and then he sees it on his arm.
Yep, he got it. He was criticized for that. He hurt the fly.
Yeah, he's a hero. He's a hero for that now.
Yeah. He's a hero for a lot of things.
Yeah, mine is, remember back in 2 years ago, 2018, we discussed in episode 232 the Minnesota Public Radio Raccoon, NPR Raccoon.
Oh, the one that climbed up the building?
Exactly. Captivated the nation back then by scaling a 25-story building. Our local television personality, Jason DeRusha of WCCO TV, retweeted a video this week of a raccoon interrupting a CNN reporter who was in front of the White House on the White House lawn reporting something, and it kept coming behind me. He's like, "Yeah, get away!" throwing stuff at it. Damn raccoons keep interrupting, blah blah blah. DeRusha retweeted it with a comment that it appears the publicity hungry NPR raccoon has moved east.
Well, we used to have a squirrel that climbed up the flagpole at Yankee Stadium, and everybody would cheer when it was up there. They would just sit up there and watch the game. It was so funny. But we have to make ourselves laugh. So there's a trending hashtag on Twitter, unflattering cat photo challenge. And it's just all these horrible pictures of cats. So every Saturday there's Caturday, and you see these adorable cats. My adorable cat did this, and my adorable cat.
It's unflattering to the cat.
Unflattering pictures of the cat, yeah. Okay. Just its nose, or, like it's growling at
I will
you.
have to check my friend Adrian's Twitter feed or Facebook feed, because he is all about Caturday.
It'll be there. It'll be there. So that brings us to shiny objects, yeah?
Yeah, what do you got?
Well, I just have to precede this by saying that I have had several VR experiences, and I'm one of the people who it makes dizzy. So this wouldn't really work for me, but there's a 360-degree VR treadmill. It's called the Virtuix Omni One VR treadmill, and it lets you move up and down and sideways and side to side. You can go in a 360-degree. That's the VR experience. I'm sure you're just running on the treadmill, but it can detect if you crouch or you kneel, which you probably do during games that you play in VR. And it doesn't take up a lot of room in your house, like you feel like you're doing all this. It's only 4 foot in diameter. But you don't have to worry about getting hurt or falling off, because you strap yourself into a vest before you start. And it has it's at adjustable height, and it's supposed to feel like an extension of your body that can move in all different directions. I am sure it would make me throw up.
So basically, it's just one of those baby seat things, like a circle around it with a tether, and then you put on goggles and
I have a video of it, but it seems like that. I mean, but when there's fast movement, it just it doesn't work for me. And the one that I did that I really got sick at was a bee's eye view of the Jose Cuervo plantation. And they realized soon after people started looking at it that they had the bee going too fast. That's why people were getting dizzy. So, there's a lot to still be done in VR.
All right. Well, I'd try it.
Yeah, I would try it.
This is
at your house.
This is a tool for journalists. So this is called Document Cloud. And it is, as I said, a tool for journalists who are reporting or publishing primary source documents. So you upload your documents to Document Cloud. And what it does is it takes every document that you upload and it runs it through Thomson Reuters Open Calais service that then gives you more information about the document. So it gives you extensive information about the people, places, or organizations that are mentioned in the document. It reveals all the dates that are mentioned in the document, so you can plot them on a timeline, and then you can zoom in on a few critical months or days. It gives you other documents, so you can discover the other documents that are related to your story. You can annotate your documents, so you can highlight key passages. You can make them public. So your annotations, you can make them public once you publish your reporting, but you can also have private notes while you're organizing your thoughts around it. Every note that you create has a unique URL, so you can send readers directly to the point in the document that you want to highlight. Everything stays private until you make it public, until you publish it. But once you decide to publish, then it becomes part of the library of 1 million other primary source documents in their public catalog. There's a document viewer that you can embed on your website, so you can embed the document on your website. You have to apply to use it, so they are vetting who is using it, which is good. But it also, it's public search, so you can search thousands of public documents as well from newsrooms around the world. So an interesting new resource. If for no other reason to search for them for the public, but journalists would be interested in this as well.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
So, but if you're not a journalist, would you be able to use it?
I guess you would have, I mean, there's a form that you apply to. And then you probably, if you have like an email address at New York Times or whatever, then you're obviously a reporter. If you're not, then you probably have to, I would suspect, I haven't gone through the application process because I don't have any
credentials,
public sources, but you'd have to probably justify why you should be allowed in.
The New York Times is doing an interesting thing with documents where you can see reporter notes and you can, where they can, talk about stuff that they're not going to write about in the Times, or they can put background information in there, and they're just Google Drive documents. It's very interesting. I spent some time looking at them, a little bit like diaries, but official. So that brings us to politics, huh?
Yes, it does. I thought we were talking about politics.
I know. Well, this is more political. Newman is back. Hello, Newman from Seinfeld. And so it's actually the actor who is Wayne Knight, and he played the postman Newman on Seinfeld. And there's an organization that is called, what is the organization called? But anyway, for this organization, he has made a video talking about the premeditated assault on the US Postal Service by President Trump, and urging people to vote. But along the way, he's very Newman. He takes a leg of chicken now or whatever it is out of his bag, and he's munching on it while he's talking to you, and then he's eating something and crumbs are coming all over him. Oh, the ad was put out by Activism, and they're a political action committee, and according to their website, they're running the largest digital effort to get Trump the fuck out of office. And it has anti-Trump ads that are all designed to go viral, and focuses on 6 swing states: Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And some of the stuff they do is really very funny. And this is funny only because it's him. And I guess that's the point. But, he's in character in it. And while he's talking, these 2 guys come and they take the mailbox away.
Of course. Well, welcome back. I'm happy to have Newman back.
Yeah, right. Hello, Newman.
So let's wrap this up. Weekly numbers. This is from The Conversation. and it is a bunch of reporters for a very short piece, so I don't know why that is. But Jessica Vrendenberg, Amanda Spry, Joya Kemmer, and Summer Capitan at the conversation. Anyway, they report on the Nielsen survey that reports that 72% of sports fans believe athletes are an important influence in Black Lives Matter movement, and 59% expect athletes to engage personally with the Black Lives Matter activism. In short, basically, we've been talking about this like for a long time. We saw this coming, that society is forcing brands to take stands on social issues. So this is just more evidence of that.
Well, wow, it's interesting that that is such a big trend now, though. It was, you know, a few standout brands that had the nerve to do it at the start, and now it's getting more mainstream. And, you know, that has a lot to do with the website that you just finished, where, you know, you can do business with brands that do good. That's what we want. You know, I mean, this is the time for that concept. So that brings us to the end of episode 326 of the Beyond Social Media show. And I'm here with David Erickson, who's on Twitter as D Erickson, on Instagram as DE Erickson, on YouTube as eStrategy. He blogs at e-strategy.blog, which someday he'll explain the difference to you. And I'm BL Ochman, and I'm on Twitter as What's Next. I blog at What's Next blog, which is also my YouTube channel. I just updated blochman.com. And the show, Beyond Social Media Show, you can find us in all the places we are by just searching for Beyond Social Media Show. But after the show, at our blog, BeyondSocialMediaShow.com, we will have the show notes with links to everything that we discussed. And we are BS Media on Twitter, and BS Media Show, excuse me, on Twitter. And you can find the podcast